Hello, everyone. Welcome to the networking conference made by Team ESTEEM. And it's our pleasure to welcome all of you today and present you our two panels and then networking sessions in the next upcoming 1 hour and a half. First of all, to those of you who don't know, this is AirMeet platform. I will run through some technicalities, how to use it so that we are all on the same page. My name is Sonia, and I'm currently advisor to Team ESTEEM. And with me, there's Alex McLaren, our faculty manager, and Scott Calder, current team lead. And I will pass on to them to give you introduction to what's happening with the team currently and with the project. In terms of what you see right now, this is the main session. So you will be able to see our welcoming session here, as well as panel 1 and panel 2. Apart from that, we have a social lounge. So when the welcome session finish and the panels finish, you will be able to go to social lounge where we have tables. So when you can sit and network with our sponsors as well as attendees, which are usually as team members or students. And we highly recommend to you the speed networking as well. And it randomly matches you with another attendant from the conference. In the meantime, you can also use the chat, which is on the right-hand side. We have our operational team, Yashadara, or Team ESTEEM, as you can see, to basically observe and react to everything that is happening here. Any links, they will all be given in the chat. And I think that there was enough of an introduction to the platform. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will happily pass over to Alex McLaren. And Alex, please feel free to take the mic.
Thank you very much, Sonia. And hello, everyone, and hello from on the road. Apologies that I couldn't be there in person today. It's a day when I have a lot of logistics to cover, but I'm delighted to be able to help to open this session. This is one of the first Networking with Us sessions that the team have put on. We're really excited that you've been able to join us today and hugely grateful to all of our speakers, especially those from our sponsors. Team ESTEEM is absolutely a student-led project, and I am privileged to be the faculty member who is able to work with these students as they run through all of the process of building this ambitious solar house, but also everything around that. And one of the things we've learned is the massive importance attached to the connections made between industry and students during this process of designing and building the solar house. And this Network with Us session is an initiative by the students to further share that amongst a wider group, to allow members of industry to engage with our ambitious, innovative student group, but also to allow those students to spread that connection with industry and the benefits that they get from being able to have these discussions to a wider audience. So I'm hugely excited by today's event. I'm going to follow as much of it as I can. Thank you so much, Sonia and Scott, for allowing me to say a few words at the beginning. But I am at this point going to hand you back to the students of Heriot-Watt University who are running this, who are leading this, and I'm delighted to see what's going to come next. Thank you, Sonia. Back to you.
Thank you very much. It does indeed feel like a very presenter-like experience. So I will now pass on to Scott so that he can give you a brief update about the current status of the team, but also possibly what's been happening on site.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sonia. And yeah, so essentially, these last couple of months have been rather hectic, shall we say. As Sonia just mentioned there, we have been at the stage of testing our prototype. I'm sure a lot of you, hopefully all of you, follow our social media channels and have seen the stages we've gone through, essentially from the foundation setting out through to the floor installation to actually finishing the wall installation and actually getting our first insulation cassette put on last week, which was a great achievement for us. A lot of hard work and a lot of trials and tribulations, shall we say, to get to the stage we're at just now. But it's been a really good learning opportunity for us as a team, alongside the companies we've been working with. Many of you we've been chasing up with questions and queries all the way through. But this is the idea of the project is, as Alex said, it is a learning project. It is an opportunity for us to develop our ideas and work with industry. So on site, as said, we've been working really, really hard on the prototype construction, but that hasn't been the only area we've been working on. as Yashidara and a lot of the marketing team have been working on, has been the exposure. We had STV visiting us on Friday last week, with myself and Alex being showcased ever so briefly in STV News last night. So that'll be getting posted on our social media, and we hope that'll be something you'd be willing to share as well. But alongside that as well, we'll be in contact with basically all of you in the next couple of weeks to start looking at how we can start showcasing your product and the work you've done with us in the house as well while we're over there. But the next stage, primarily for the project, is going to be shipping, which is scarily starting next week and the week after. So we spent all this time putting the house up, and now we're going to spend all the time taking it back down again. But that is part of the project, sadly. So we are going to be working really hard on that and working with you to get that done as smoothly as possible. But alongside this as well, we will be continuing to discuss our ideas, discuss the design and how we've been working on things. And yeah, I think essentially, I'm sure all of you have been looking at LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And the updates you get there are much more detailed than I can provide in a couple of minutes. But again, if you've got any questions or anything you want to discuss with us, please feel free to get back in touch, even if it's outside of a regular email chain or anything like that, because we're more than happy to see how we can work with you all going forward. And yeah, thank you very much, Sonia, for organising this, and I hope everyone has a nice afternoon.
Thank you, Scott. I think that it's also worth mentioning that, I mean, at least I like to mention it from a very biased perspective, is that throughout this last more than a couple of weeks, it's been going on since May, on site, we have such a wonderful inclusive team because we have so many females working on. And I think that to those of you who don't know yet, we have over 40% of our team is females, and we have multiple pictures of very diverse team working on site with all the tools, all the technical knowledge, and everything that proves how mixed teams are the best solutions to incorporating the innovation. It's wonderful to also have in my personal case, male friends supporting us in the journey and being proud of especially the leadership positions taken by all the females from university. And I do hope that it will transfer directly to the working environment, considering how many young professionals we have right now entering the market, including myself this year and Scott next year. I do want to see this change. Thank you as well to all the staff members from Herod Watt, like Alex, that support this. And I think we're getting in a really good direction. And this conference is also aimed to give students, but also our members, the opportunity to actually network and get ourselves out there, learn how to talk about our skills that projects like Team ESTEEM tailor in the young generation. So we're just very proud of that. And I hope that it's visible in our social media. And I think that we'll not prolong it any further. And this welcoming session was really good. And we'll just jump straight away to panel one. And we do have two speakers, panel one, Veda and Jeroen. So I will welcome them here very soon. And now, Alex and Scott, it's lovely to have you here. I hope to see you at the networking tables. And I can say bye for now from the main stage. Perfect. Hello again, everyone. We have currently 17 attendees watching us. Just to start this panel, I would like to introduce you to Jeroen Janssen and Veda Baliga, who are representing respectively Thornton Tomasetti, which is one of the largest consulting engineering firms, and IES, which is one of the best companies to do modeling for built environment. And first of all, thank you for your time. And Jeroen and Veda, would you like to add a couple of words about your participation here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having us, first of all. So Thornton Tomasetti, we're doing a wide range of consultancy services, so structural design, facade engineering, a couple of different practices, applied science actually in Edinburgh mainly. I'm part of Core Studio, as we call it, which is our internal research and development team. So that has to do with some complex geometry, with some actual software and application development. And for specifically Team ESTEEM, where I helped out with, is actually some CFD simulations to look at the wind going into the wind catcher to see how that actually could help the whole microclimate and hopefully cool the patio and the area around it, let's say. So it was great working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Veda?
I think it's kind of very, hopefully very familiar to most people, whether you're at university or whether you're in the consulting field. Like the VE, which is like the virtual environment, is probably the tool from IES that most people know best. And I think in the past couple of years, like IES have broadened the kind of toolkit or tool set that's being offered to try and allow people to model and simulate like large scale impacts of urbanization, and then how that can help move towards decarbonization. And that's the part of the company that I work in. It's called the ICOs, the Intelligent Communities Lifecycle. And that's also like the focus of a lot of the support and guidance that like people from my team have provided to the ESTEEM team as well, like in exposing them to some of these new tools and capabilities, and also guiding them in terms of like how best to leverage and use them in order to make good decisions for initially for the house that you're building, but also hopefully in the future for the work that you go forth to do.
Thank you very much. Indeed, both, as you said, from both of you, we experienced a lot of help, especially at the current stage when most of the decisions were made about half a year ago, and we do see the consequences of all of them. And I think it would be good to touch base first on actually what you said, Veda, is how the modeling of the systems in the built environment impacts our decision-making process. And I wanted just to ask, because we personally in Team ESTEEM, we do have heat storage, for example, we do have an electric car that we want to model. And do you see how does the modeling impact these decision-making processes towards sustainable solutions in the actual market?
I think that there's definitely a case to be made that actually, like in the same way that you wouldn't build a building without designing it first and actually gaming out and mapping out how that building will behave. I think this kind of modeling, when you're looking at the overall behavior of the building across time, like that's just the same, that you want to test out something before you make a decision whether to go forward with it or not. So I think the simplistic answer to that is yes, of course, by testing and modeling something, it's more likely that if you can show that it's robust and reliable enough, it becomes something that's adopted. But I think the expectation of like having different ways to kind of test and analyze and look at decarbonization in a more meaningful way is not so much to push specific tech, but it's more to actually allow for more meaningful decision making, because decarbonization or even sustainability, it's not a single thing that you need to do to be able to decarbonize or to be more sustainable. It's actually an interconnected series of decisions. And often when you make a decision to impact on one type of resource, it has like a concurrent impact on something else. And actually knowing all of these impacting outcomes is how you make a good decision. So I think that's part of what we want to focus on, is like, especially when you have complex decisions to make, how can you best get all of the associated information? And I think I can give a couple of examples. Like one would be like I've worked a lot on very warm climates, and when you try and have like water cooled chillers because they're more efficient to provide like cooling, you tend to also have cooling towers, which can add to like water stress. So in places like Australia and the Middle East, like water is a big issue. So you always have to balance out the decision making between those. Or even in the UK now, where we're talking about the electrification of heat by using heat pumps instead of gas boilers, there's a concurrent impact on the power grid and how much you would stress existing infrastructure. And then also what happens down the line with climate change and with future weather, like how would that same system behave? So these are the kind of questions that we hope that this approach can help you answer. And yeah, go ahead. Like, I didn't know if Jeroen wanted to add something to it in the context of the work that you guys do.
I just exactly wanted to pass to Jeroen, because it's going to be really interesting to see the perspective of the consulting firm, how you approach this complex decision-making processes.
To be honest, I can only agree with Veda. Like, yeah, it's hugely important. It's in everything we do, really, actually. Like, yeah, as you say, before you build it, when you design it, you actually want to test and want to make sure that the design you propose actually behaves as you expect. And with modeling as well comes physical testing, actually, to validate the modeling every time, or not necessarily every time, but at least that you know that your modeling approach is accurate compared to the physical real world thing. So it's physical testing, like for instance wind tunnel testing compared to CFD. It's also my colleagues in the Edinburgh office, let's say, they work a lot on submarines, etc., and risk of blast. So that sort of simulation, but actually do some actual explosions underwater, some testing, that sort of thing. So linking the real world up with the simulation during design, but then also I think with the bigger picture where it all comes together, actually measuring it and putting some sensors on the actual build design and feed that back into the modeling. So yes, absolutely. And they become more and more complex. Like it's not just as exactly as Veda said, it's just not just a single thing to look at, but it's the whole ecosystem of structural analysis design, facade design, sustainability. Within sustainability, all of the climatic factors together. How can they actually benefit the whole user experience?
Can I touch base on a very similar topic, is because obviously people working in the construction industry would have the understanding of how everything needs to ties up together to make the coherent outcome. Do you observe the same understanding from the customers that obviously purchase your services and expertise?
Yes, but it also varies, let's say, right? How let's say, experienced the clients are, let's say, how often they build, or purchase or whichever. But there's also a way to educate them, I guess, right? So if we specifically look at the whole modeling, there is a bit of work, there's a bit of time and resources we need to put against. So there is some upfront cost that will have to be spent, but often that actually earns itself back into a better design, or less errors, maybe, less remediation afterwards to get it back into shape. So I think there's a bit of education towards the clients as well necessary of, okay, let's actually do one or two simulations, because then at least we know what we're going to get in the outcome. Yeah.
I understand. And obviously, Veda, with ICL, the whole package, as you said, the whole main purpose of it is to make the smart decisions. Do you see any tendencies between, especially like young professionals and people working in a field for many years, tendencies towards accepting the innovation and actually incorporating it in the industry?
I think there's always been the case that, like, when you get like new people coming into the field, like you get new ideas and different ways of approaching things. That has, I think, always been like the case, and that's like one of the most valuable things, that you can't improve something if you keep doing things the same way. But I think for like before I worked at IES, like I've been in the construction industry and in the engineering side for like almost 2 decades, and I think it's a very conservative industry. Like it is resistant to change, and you can almost think of it as like a big ship or something. There's a lot of inertia, so it takes a lot of time and effort to move it. But once it starts moving, is hard to stop, like, because it's gained enough momentum. And I think that in this case, it's actually working in the favor of innovation right now, because a lot of limitations to innovation has never been that young people are not willing to try different things, or even the people that are there. I think there's always either financial constraints, or there isn't enough of a regulatory framework or driver that says, oh, okay, this is why we need to innovate or create something. So the fact that now, not just, and I think it's been much more meaningful since COVID, that a lot of governments, like part of the way that they want to encourage economic recovery is through investment in kind of a sustainable infrastructure. And they're putting policies in place that will actually incentivize people to innovate, to find ways to decarbonize. Like that's one of the ways that the economy recovers as well. So now there's a financial incentive, there's a regulatory incentive, and now everywhere across the world, like everybody's kind of got to a point where, okay, this is something we just need to do. Like we're not talking about the if, we're talking about the how. And so I think that in and of itself has given a big enough push. So that means all of the innovative ideas that people are coming up with, there's an opportunity to try them out and to actually see what works best. And I think just on a more practical and literal scale, I think with every generation, it's always going to change and improve. Like even basic stuff like the fact that everybody starting out now like has some basic understanding of like programming, even for something like Python or Ruby, or the fact that when you're doing any kind of data analytics, like you have access to machine learning algorithms, like, you know, this is the kind of stuff that like it can only lead to better things, because at least now we have access to these tools that 5 years ago, it would have been difficult to make use of in a meaningful way. So yeah, I definitely hope it improves.
I understand. Okay, that's a really interesting point. So I just wanted to touch base on the biggest challenges, because there's pros and cons. As you said, there's a resilient industry, but once it gains momentum, it goes quite quickly. So I'm interested whether the challenges still remain to every innovation to just overcome the momentum, or do we have additional challenges that you face?
I think it's always like there's always some kind of resistance, no matter like even if something becomes widely adopted, and there's always going to be pockets of resistance. But I think in broadly speaking, the challenges are much more of a practical nature, and also about how you actually communicate some of that to engage all of the different stakeholders and people who need to be engaged, because it's not just coming from one end. Like it can't be, although it helps when it's someone like the client because they're driving the process, but it can't be just the client. It also has to be the various teams that are engaged, that everybody has to be working in the same direction. So I think in the end, like innovation is just like one way of solving a different way of solving the problem, and we're going to need lots of different ways because it's a big, complex problem. So there are always going to be issues. There are going to be financial challenges. There's going to be resistance because not everyone is sold on the same way of approaching it. There's going to be lots of issues. But I think fundamentally, like as long as the big picture, everybody agrees like what we want to do, then everybody will come up with different ways of solving that problem. And that's what leads to innovation.
I understand. And Jeroen, if you can comment on a very similar area, and especially we're interested in the challenges that we face with modeling, which is such as CFD in the commercial area.
Yeah, no, I think Veda's absolutely right. Let's say like it needs the bigger teams, and as well, I think even like if I'm looking within our firm, it's leadership as well. Let's say, and like the old dogs listening to the young people coming in, let's say, right? Like giving the platform to almost not be afraid to just speak up and tell them off or come up with new ideas, let's say, right? If the junior engineers, the young graduates come in and think something is not right, they should be able to actually tell, or if they want to push something in a different direction in terms of innovation or something, yeah, just bring it up. And yeah, in terms of modeling, it's also, yeah, as I said before, it's part of education, let's say, as well. Also towards clients, it's showing a bit of, let's say, track record that you've done your bits and you know what you're talking about, let's say. So, for instance, if I specifically look at CFD, let's say, that you can corroborate with a CFD, with a wind tunnel, that you know if you show the modeling results, they show similar results to a physical test. And by that as well, hopefully the real world outcome, right? There's still work to do, but we're we're getting there. Let's say, like you really see progress that the CFD, let's say, the wind studies, they find their spot more and more within the mix.
I was curious, actually, do you find that like now it's actually easier to engage people and convince them that you actually need like safety analysis of certain things? Because before it would have been only in specialized cases or only to kind of identify specific problems. Like even the fact that like the new regulation in London for like the outdoor comfort stuff, like the fact that there's now a framework in which everyone can be kind of evaluated equally. Do you think that kind of makes it more likely that like outdoor comfort and, you know, like CFD analysis, whether it's indoor or outdoors, becomes more of a common tool to be used?
It absolutely does. And actually the City of London guidelines are really good in that, because they actually put wind tunnel testing and CFD next to each other as equals. So on the lower building, you can choose the mid-range, I think you still need to do wind tunnel testing. The taller buildings, you have to do both, they actually say, right? Right. So above 100 meter, you have to do wind tunnel testing and CFD by 2 consultants. And there's other cities, of course, the other boroughs within London are always looking at the City of London, but there's also other cities, like Leeds is actually preparing a very similar wind guidelines. The City of London, on top of that, now actually has also a thermal comfort guidelines. It's not a pass-fail yet on the planning permission, but the client will have to do a simulation. So that's wind, including the whole solar and then thermal analysis. So yes, that sort of regulation, it will help. And the City of London has always been pushing ahead as one of the first with that, and others will follow suit, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And that will then, all of a sudden, it doesn't become a cost discussion anymore. It just has to happen, let's say, right? So it makes the whole discussion way easier.
Absolutely. And I think that that's one of the fundamental things, like, especially to people who are still students or you're entering the workforce. Like, I think we always underestimate we always think of regulation as something you have to do. It's a compliance thing, but often that is the foundation that actually sets the requirement that leads to innovation, because then you can find very interesting ways to actually meet that requirement. Like, that's where the innovation comes in.
No, absolutely. And actually, those 2 guidelines, the wind and the thermal ones, the City of London actually went out to the whole industry and actually talked with everyone. And we actually had some discussions about them before they became a draft legislation and then final legislation, yeah.
I just wanted to say that we ran out of time for our panel 1.
Okay.
Despite very engaging conversation. And I think it's actually a really good point to end the panel with. So I just wanted to thank you both. And just wanted to say that this conversation, we will be very happy to redo again in some time about the modeling, especially because I think it's a really important part of especially Team ESTEEM, and we would like to promote exactly what you said and how the innovation needs to go forward. And for now, again, thank you for your time, and invite everyone to the social lounge where we can just sit at the tables and talk more about the same topic with just more people live. So once again, thank you, and see you all at the networking tables.
Great, thank you.
Sonia, say something.
Alex,
I can hear you.
Here.
I can hear you.
Okay. So hello again. Hello to all the 20 people that are watching us right now. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties. It do happen sometimes, but we are happy that we can all hear each other and speak up. So I think that we can just keep going with the session. And I just wanted to introduce everyone briefly. First of all, we'd like to welcome Fiona and Mark from CSIC. And they are supporting us mostly with production of the panels, technical expertise, and everything that we can ask for in terms of timber and CLT. We would also like to welcome Alison, who's been doing a class of your own with us. It's a wonderful member that educates children and teenagers about construction and how and design, and how to put the innovation forward. And also we want to welcome Alex, who is representing Norrsken, a company that provides all the windows for us, but also is an expert in terms of passive house and all the certifications. So we just welcome all of you. Thank you for your time. And accordingly to, in order with the introductions, Fiona and Mark, would you like to add anything from your side?
Just that it's been an absolute pleasure to support the project right through from the kind of conceptual stage where we supported the hackathon programme to really understand your opportunities with this project in relation to the construction and the design of the Decathlon house, and actually then being able to become a supply chain member, leaning heavily on our factory expertise led by Mark, was a fantastic opportunity as well. Anything that relates to cross-laminate timber, never mind with Scottish homegrown timber, is an absolute privilege. So thank you for having us on board.
Thank you too. And Alison, would you like to add a couple of words from your side? Alison, can you hear us? I think Alison might face the same difficulties. So I will get back to Alison in the backstage. Well, in the meantime, Alex, if you wouldn't mind, just give a couple of words from your side.
Yeah, we were contacted by Scott some time ago. I can't remember when. It seems like a long time ago, but you know, an enthusiastic young guy got in touch and was after windows for obviously an interesting project, which we were happy to be part of. We you know, we obviously embrace anyone that's trying to push the type of thing you're doing, modern building standards, moving those forward as quick as possible. So it's been a real joy working with the whole team.
Thank you very much. So just to give you a heads up, Alison is facing the same difficulties. I did say just message her to join through Google Chrome, but in the meantime, I think it's worth just going forward with the discussion. So I just wanted to start off because we all are very incorporated in the program. But the topic of the panel is how to scale innovation, and it would be great to touch base on it quite just deeper into a topic. And first of all, Fiona, because Fiona is representing the business side of CSIC, and while doing all the panels for the ESTEEM House, we did see how all the projects are going through the factory. Fiona, do you think that how the R&D is going on in CSIC and how is it easy to scale the innovation and actually forward it from the business side to the market? You're muted.
Sorry, we're doing great, aren't we? Sorry, Sonia. I was just saying, I think in terms of scaling innovation, it's absolutely the built environment's biggest challenge. When you think about that kind of baseline starting point in terms of quite a traditional industry, they can be a sense of, you know, investing in what we trust and new things don't go hand in hand with that type of approach and culture that we're facing. But what I would say is the role that we play at CSIC is to help overcome that challenge is by far from impossible. It can be done. And that's where opportunities in relation to pilots and showcase homes like your own and really just demonstrating that products perform and can deliver in the capacity they were designed to do so with additional benefits. That's the real sense of opportunity. And if you can secure a pipeline of opportunities in the back of these pilots, in the back of this kind of showcase opportunity, then everyone benefits. And if we can lever support in terms of Scotland universities taking on a consultant role to verify that, you know, new products and innovation do deliver in the way that we are demonstrating that they do. And that verification just helps us build trust from industry's point of view. And with trust comes adoption, and with adoption comes scale. And that's what our role is here at CSIC, is to really support that innovation project right from concept stage through our networks to delivery and commercial exploitation. But it is a challenge. There's absolutely no doubt there is a challenge, but there's also significant rewards for the organisations that do make that investment, both in terms of time and money.
Thank you. And just to touch base with, first of all, let's check. Alison, can you hear me? I think we face the same difficulties that I'm just not hearable by Alison, but I'll solve it in the meantime. And Alison, yes? Unfortunately not. Mark, would you mind in the meantime just telling, because obviously Fiona has a business perspective, but can you also tell us how it looks from the operational point of view? Because obviously scaling all the innovation in the factory itself is not as easy, not easy at all.
I think a large part is just being able to do the physical prototype or a showcase and give people, others that are looking to innovate an idea of what is possible and that it can be done, that we're overcoming the challenges. I think it builds a supply chain, as Fiona says as well, some trust in the supply chain. We've gone through the whole process of, scoping, design, validation, procurement, then the manufacture, logistics, assembly, remedial works, learning and continuous improvement, gone through the whole process, and we're learning as we go as well, and also demonstrating that a lot of the things that may sometimes be perceived as insurmountable aren't insurmountable. And again, we've had a great team working on the project, a really wide kind of diverse range of people and multidisciplined as well. It's been really, I think it's just, for me, it's proving that it can be done. It absolutely is scalable, and the correct way to do it is to start where we're starting just now and build upon that and just learn as we go, and make sure that we're always building up and improving as we go as well. But a good idea of procurement, supply chain, capability, what is actually involved, maybe where some of the areas that could use a bit of work and understanding what work they need, things like that. It's been really great to be collecting all this data and information as we go, and that's absolutely key to being able to scale. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. No, it's very important, but I think that it's also embedded in the whole work of CSIC. It's just the R&D and how you push forward and how you say like the adoption of it. But obviously, just because you work with so many universities, it's the different nature of work. But Alex, if we can ask your opinion as well from a very commercial point of view, because all your services that you provide are very wide, but you are trying to push forward for the passive house. So can you just say how the scaling looks from your perspective?
I think exposure to the market obviously is key with passive house. Not everything we do is passive house. We work on a lot of low energy projects where maybe people don't quite have the budgets or the awareness for passive house, but they are really trying the best to build, as energy efficient home as they can. And I think the exposure through television, press, trade shows like Grand Design Live has been, it's a very popular TV show. It's got magazines, trade shows. So people are aware of the moves in the market and the sort of bigger projects and the architect-led designs that are really sort of wow. I think architect awareness is probably the key one for us. It's so important whether you're building commercially or in commercial sectors. It's slightly different because most of our stuff is actually residential. But I think in the residential market, your architect, you need a builder, you need land, you need an architect that's on board that you get on well with, and the guidance that the architect can lead on a project is vital. So the exposure to the market for low energy construction and passive house is getting better all the time. I would say 10 years ago, the awareness was very different. We would have many people coming into the showroom that had little understanding of heat recovery systems, triple glazing, timber frame was, people turn their nose up at that. Whereas these days we see a lot more timber frame, ICF, CLT, and less of the standard block and brick built homes. So that's encouraging. I made a note that I felt that still the biggest challenge for us is this mainstream way of constructing. Our building regs down in England are different to Scotland, but we're still hit with the same problems in that the large scale house builders are tending to work to the current building reg standards. And there was some crazy statistic I heard a few years ago when analysing the UK market against other European markets. And there was a great example that don't quote me on these actual figures because it was about 3-4 years ago, but it was a very telling statistic that if you were in Belgium, 90% of all new homes built would be self-build. So the end user and the end client has a much greater impact on what is built, which means, but here in the UK, it's as little as 7%. That's probably changed, but that means something like 90% of the market here in the UK is being built by large-scale house builders that may not have adopted the modern standards. So that's a huge challenge. But I would say that until government legislation changes that and forces people to build to a higher standard, it's always going to be a bit of a struggle. But definitely the market has moved towards much more awareness of trying to build energy efficient homes.
I understand fully. I don't know if Alison can see, but it would be great.
Yeah, so we've been working with Team ESTEEM for some while, and indeed with CSIC. And you know, we mentioned some words there we normally use with industry: scalability, exploitation, innovation. It's not words that children are particularly familiar with in school. For them, it's get on that sort of core exam treadmill. I'm going to get to my end of fifth form or into my higher, into sixth form. And I never really know what's out there. And I think we proved last year when we had, you know, 2,000 children on our ESTEEM Pavilion work experience program, with you guys all helping out and with industry getting involved. And I mean, it was an amazing effort from Heriot Watts across the board with academics and students. You know, that children need to meet innovators to be inspired to innovate, and they then see that anything is possible. And I think you guys know yourself the standard of work that came through from children who knew nothing day one on Monday morning at 9 o'clock to Friday afternoon, when it was just incredible what was coming through into our inboxes as 8-page reports that were going into energy efficiency, you know, modern methods of construction, everything that we talk about, they were talking about. And I think that's the bottom line. Exposure is absolutely key. You know, Alex mentioned exposure, and I know Fiona's mentioned exploitation. You know, children don't know the industry and the people in it, and you know, they live in houses. They don't know their place in the future of the industry, or indeed, you know, as homeowners in the workforce. And I think we can all appreciate that the career journey can start in school, but only if we as a collective are part of that schooling experience. And you know, whether you're a student, whether you're in industry, or even as a teacher, we've all got a role to play in that innovation.
Thank you, Alison. And I just wanted to come back to Mark and Fiona, whether you think that the young generation, do we actually have impact on the regulations? And how does obviously it takes the innovation further, because you work with so many universities and young professionals, that are we able to overcome this issue of regulations together?
I think, as you say, that more fresh ideas and fresh approaches to things, and challenging the norms, and not having this that's the way we've always done it mentality that some people maybe that have been working in the industry for decades would tend to have, and just an ability and willingness to explore and test new ideas and find solutions. I think that we've experienced that even just on the project in the factory with the SDME house. And I think as well, just an understanding of you know, changes to legislation standards and a real foresight on industry trends as well, and a better awareness and understanding of, as I see it anyway, kind of holistically just the build methods and awareness and understanding of products and solutions, and just improved skills and training, I think, as well. But I think it definitely can drive innovation, and then drive the I think I've lost someone there. You still there? And I think to drive changes to standards and legislation as well in the long term. That all takes a while, but it certainly all works towards that. Yes, so absolutely, for sure. I think a lot of the people we see coming up now in the future leaders have all of these qualities and traits, and it's really encouraging to see.
Absolutely, and it's that evidence base that projects like this can create, isn't it, Mark, in terms of demonstrating an ability within an innovation project that then in turn creates that ripple effect, and a lot of what we do by way of events and so forth post delivery of these projects, that dissemination piece, really just to get the messaging out there of what can be done, creates curiosity, and with that the market opportunities evolve, and just again creates that pressure upon the regulation system with the right people in charge of steering that ship, so to speak. And that's where that kind of wider network part really has a lot of strength in making that change.
I think that just getting hands-on and being able to ask questions that maybe aren't that obvious until you are working hands-on on things as well, it's a real opportunity to do that. And I've certainly had a lot of challenging questions from the team when they've been in. I've not always been able to answer them all straight away, but it's really refreshing, and just the enthusiasm and just inspiring people that have been working on the project. It is kind of contagious, it's been really, really enlightening. Working on this project with all the team ESTEEM, and I think that's been a really big component, is just asking questions and just getting them up 10, and it makes me think about some of the things that maybe I think are obvious as well, and makes me question some of the things that we do from day to day too, which is important to keep us kind of guessing and thinking as well. So
thank you for your comment. But it just reminded me also about the realization and issues we faced with Norrsken folding doors when we tried to incorporate it in the design with all the CLT panels, and then we got questions about the fire rating and so on. And there are some in Dubai, for example, there are certain regulations that obviously have some reasons, but that with design, sometimes we just need a change. So in our case, there's impossible, as Alex will probably comment in a minute, it's impossible to get folding doors with like an hour or 2 hours fire rating, just because it just don't make sense, because they're just so easy to open. They work like a door, and a completely different story. And it was quite difficult for us to went for the whole project of explaining the design and why the reasoning for this particular, just why we should not comply with it, and nature of this design project. And Alex, please feel free to comment on it as well, just because it was an interesting case.
Well, building regulations are a challenge, because you've got innovation moving in one direction, and regulations are there for a reason. But if they don't move at the same pace as innovation, then you hit a brick wall sometimes. And we hit it quite regularly with the specking the windows on the Team ESTEEM house. Regulations in a foreign country, we don't ever sell to the Middle East, so it was all new to me. But the irony was that you needed fire escape on folding doors, and the whole house has got plenty of doors. Of course, in the event of a fire, the first thing you do would be to leave via another door. So the folding doors are mildly irrelevant. But this is what you come up against, and we hit it on residential projects with fire escapes. We hit problems like that, and of course, what you're trying to do is build houses. For us, a lot of the performance of a house comes through solar gain. So you need large expanses of glass, and a house will perform better with more fixed glazing for air tightness and thermal performance. The less open as you have, the better. But then you have to still comply with all the same building regs that you need in enable the house to comply. So it can be a challenge, but like all these things, there are times in the office when we're scratching our heads thinking, how the heck are we going to work this out? But invariably you do, because that's what you have to do.
Exactly. Thank you, Alex. And Alison, can you hear me? Just the last check.
Yeah, you'll forgive me. Technology is an issue in schools, never mind in people's homes. I've been in and out and reloading about 15 times, so I've missed quite a lot. Again, and forgive me, picking up the tail end and scratching our heads and stuff. I will say one thing. It's amazing how many ideas that we've come across over the years. We've been at this now for 12 years, and in industry for more than that. And it's amazing how many times that you work with young people as a collective. We'll have engineers in the room, we'll have architects in the room, we'll have manufacturers in the room, and suddenly one kid will just come out with something. You go, oh my God, I can't believe I had that problem for the last 12 months, and there's that child free of the barriers of have to look at this regulation, that regulation, the other, when they just come up with the idea. And I kid you not, we've just been going through some issues around intellectual property. I've even emailed Alex over the past few days around, that bright idea that a child comes out with that just solves the problem that we've been trying to scratch our heads about for years. And sometimes it's so simple. And the simplicity of involving young people with all their bright ideas, with their lack of inhibitions or anything like that, they just go out and say it. And sometimes it can be the difference. So never give up on kids, that's for sure.
Thank you, Alison. And I do think that we can finish on this, because I extended the session by 5 minutes just because we lost some at the beginning. And I just wanted to summarize that it's been wonderful to listen about scaling the innovation from how, first of all, our minds have these barriers, as you, Alison, said. It's like how sometimes teenagers or young children have this open minds, but also how the teamwork and how project, for example, like ESTEEM, make us basically our brains tangled about some issues, but we do come to the solution, and this collaboration make it actually work. And then obviously, because of all the collaboration with us and you as our sponsors and supporters, like with CSIC, we can together kind of crack this egg and take it further. And I do believe that we can actually change the regulation with enough of innovative ideas. And I would like to take this conversation further to the tables in the social lounge. And just to give you again a brief idea of how the social lounge looks, we have tables and we have speed networking. And I welcome you to join both. So speed networking will match you randomly with another attendee from the event. And in the tables, we can just talk to up to 8 people at the table. So to anyone interested, we can take the conversation further. And I would like to thank you to all the speakers here and see you in the social lunch. Thank you very much. So hello for the last time on the screen, everyone. We just wanted to thank you very much for your participation in the networking conference. I've seen that there was a couple of conversations at the table. There were people matching in the speed networking. Just to summarize the event, first of all, thank you to all the sponsors that were speakers, and it was very insightful. There were very insightful conversations, and we do hope to run this again, just because we try to keep this very brief, because we know that it's 12, it's a lunch break, it's the middle of the week. We wanted to give everyone a chance to join in, but at the same time not take too much time. So we want to run the session again, probably at the end of August or beginning of September. But in the meantime, thank you again for your participation here. We do hope that you can either visit our prototype or follow us on our social media, watch again our material from STV. And I would just say, see you in social media, see you on online events, or see you live, and have a lovely weekend. Or actually, I should say end of the week and the weekend. Bye.